Hi, everyone. We're going to go over the Newmind software and how to run a session. So we'll just get started. So what you'll find as in the desktop version has a couple of icons. The main ones we're going to focus on are the Google Chrome and the Newmind training. So we're going to go ahead and double click on Newmind training. And it's immediately going to ask us if we want to go ahead and make changes to the device or allow the app to make changes. We're going to click on yes. And the software is going to take a couple minutes to load sometimes. It's very visually graphic intense software, so we're going to give it a second. And while it's loading, we want to go ahead and have our participant set up and with the sensors on, everything nice and connected, ready to go ahead and get started. And what we'll do next is once we have the screen up and running here, we'll go ahead and select the file and start the session. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on work offline. And once we do that, we're going to be given two options. We have brain mapping and brain training. We're going to select brain training. You can close this down here at the bottom. This is just an updated version of the software. We're going to go ahead and click on brain training. And it'll load all of our session files. For the purposes of finding your session files a little bit quicker, we're going to go ahead and just go to the drop down here. We're going to select last week. And you'll see that I created a demo for this particular video. So we find our demo, and then we're going to highlight it by clicking on it. And it's going to pull up any session data, anything that's gone on before the current session, so we can look and see different sessions as they've been done. But for the sake of this purpose, we're going to go ahead and click on Start Next Session or Start Session here. And once we click on it, the system's going to load the training software. So for training purposes, we're obviously doing a simulation. So we're going to click on Dismiss. You won't see that on your file. You'll see pretty much your person's name with the location and a color. This color is going to be corresponding to the cap that you put on to mark the sensor location. So before we start, what we're going to do is just have our browser ready to go. So we're going to pull up our Netflix window. And what I typically tell people is to minimize this down to a size that we can still see the session, at least a clock, but then we'll just go ahead and have our Netflix window over here. And we'll be able to click on this right here, drag it over to make it the size we want. So this will be our Netflix window. We'll select a show to start and we can go ahead and start the show. So while the show is running, we're going to go ahead and press start. And what we're looking for is nice pencil thin lines, much like this. And again, this is a simulation, so we're going to assume that we've got a good connection, everything looks good. Your trainer will go over with you all of the details that we want to have and specify specifically how things should look. And then once we have a good clean signal, we're going to go ahead and turn on our screen fading. So in order to do that, we're just going to double check and make sure that it's at 70, 80% is typically where we want to be. If you connect a separate monitor, this will be where you'll select the second monitor. If you happen to have another monitor connected to your laptop that was given to you, you can go ahead and put the Netflix window on the second monitor, and then just make sure that when you're going to the screen fading, you select monitor 2. But for the purposes of this, we're going to go ahead and just leave monitor 1 selected, and then we're going to close the drop-down window and go ahead and press start. So once we press start, we can see that the screen gets brighter and darker as the session goes on. This is the feedback for the neurofeedback training that you're going to have. And essentially what happens is for the time frame, which in this case would be 30 minutes, the screen will brighten and darken while the participant is watching their Netflix show. So what you want to do is leave it about this size. That way you can still kind of peek in and look and see if the sensors are still connected correctly. Occasionally, you may want to just click on the main training screen here just to verify that the signal looks good. One way to know that the signal might not be good or sensors become disconnected or unattached from the head is if you notice that the screen is not getting brighter or darker at all. If it stays dark or if it stays completely bright, ultimately we want to give it a check and just double check and make sure that the signals look nice and pencil thin, that they look relatively the same going across the screen, and that, again, that we're not seeing a lot of what we would call artifact. There is a little light that appears and a little signal that says artifact detected. So you'll see it kind of pop up here or here at different times. And that's to tell us that there's artifact or muscle tension, or someone is leaning or gritting their teeth or tensing up a little bit too much, and it's causing artifact, which that's going to interfere with the signal. So again, ultimately, we want to just make sure that our Netflix window is running. We've selected our video that we're going to watch, and then we come back over here and start the screen fading. At any point in time, you can stop the screen fading and the whole screen will return back to full brightness. And that would be in case you're looking to change or watch a different video or to change something. We would want to go ahead and pause the screen fading. We would also probably want to go ahead and pause the session, and you just click here and you'll see that everything stops. Then you can go in and make your changes and look and see what video you want to watch. Hopefully we've picked something that we can watch and that's repetitious in time or continues in time as we're doing the recording. So that way we don't have to start and stop. But again, ultimately, if you did need to start and stop, you would go ahead and, again, press pause and make sure that the screen fading isn't running. So one quick last time here. So again, we'll go ahead and stop the session here, and we'll just do a real quick recap. After the end of the session, we want to always make sure that we save with playback when we do the closing, or we're closing the session, or we've reached our end of our session. Make sure that you save with playback. That way your trainer or your provider can go back and look and see the session and just look for any changes or any anomalies or anything that might not be correct. And then it also gives you the ability to get coaching. If the signal doesn't look right, the trainer can go over with you why the session didn't look right, or if there was some type of issue with the signal, they can cover all that with you. So again, we're going to go ahead and save with playback. But for this purposes, we're going to discard since we didn't really. Actually, we'll go ahead and save it with playback, just so that we have something there. So once the session is over, you'll see this please wait, and it'll return back to the review screen. And we can go ahead and open this back up again. And because we didn't have anyone hooked up, obviously we have nothing there to show. Once you're done with the session, we're going to go ahead and go back to all plans. And then you'll see your folders here. Once you're done with the session, obviously you can go ahead and close it out of the software, and you can close out of the browser. So in this case, we would close out of here. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to go ahead and just minimize our Netflix window. And so just to kind of recap again, just to go through it, we're going to go ahead and open up our Newmind training software. We're going to go ahead and click yes. And we'll let it load. While it's loading, we can go ahead and have our Google window or Google Chrome window open up to our Netflix window. So if you don't have one open, go ahead and open up the Chrome browser. So we'll do that now. We'll go ahead and open up a Chrome browser, and then we'll go to Netflix, or you can go to Disney Plus, you can go to Amazon, you can go to Hulu, whatever platform you're watching, you want to go ahead and log in from a browser. So once the Newmind training software opens, we're going to click Work Offline. We're going to go to Brain Training. And then we'll search for our file, which will be in here. Again, you're looking for training time frame of last week. So that way it pulls up the most recent ones. Obviously, other users and families have used the computer. So if you go searching, past 6 months, you're going to see a bunch of other files in there. So we don't want those. We just want the ones that are current. So we'll go on last week. We'll go ahead and find our participant's name. We'll click on the folder. You'll see that it'll pull up the last session, the most recent session that was done. and then we'll go ahead and go to start next session, or excuse me, start session. And again, this is in a simulation mode, so we'll go ahead and remove that. So you'll see again, this will look just like it will at home. You'll have it say offline, the name of the participant. What you want to double check is make sure that the person's name is here, and then just double check and make sure that the location was placed correctly. And we're going to go ahead and start. So once we start, we'll see the signals. Obviously, this person will be hooked up, ready to go with all the wires and sensors in place. And we're looking for a nice clean signal. Your trainer will probably ask you to tap a couple of the sensors, either left or right side, to verify which side the signal is coming from. That's just to confirm that the connection was done correctly, plugged in correctly to the amplifier box, and all those details. So once we have a nice clean signal, we'll go ahead and click on and just double check on our screen fading, make sure it's on at least 70. We don't want to go much lower than 60 if for some reason the screen's too dark. We can reduce it down to 60, 50, 40, just to make sure that we can see the brightness, but we recommend 70. So once we have our settings in place, we'll go ahead and press start. And then at this time, you can go ahead and pull back up your Netflix window, and you can expand it. Two ways I showed you. One way that you can watch your session is by dragging it over to one side where you can see the clock. The other way, which a lot of people like to do as well, is to have the session running down here so that they can see the signal and the numbers, over here, showing the voltages and just making sure that we can see the signal. If that doesn't work, or the participant complains a little bit about not being able to see the screen correctly, then we'll go ahead and just reduce it to about half the size. And then we'll go ahead and keep the window on top there. And we can go ahead and drag this over and keep it about this big. So we don't want to go full screen, obviously, because then we can't see the timer. Just to make sure we can check in and see how much time is left. Sessions run roughly about 30 minutes. So anything over 15 minutes is, like we mentioned, a good amount of neurofeedback that you're getting. So if you're in a rush, anything over 15, you can go ahead and stop. But we recommend going the full 30. If you're going to keep the screen like this, just make sure you check in every now and then and look and just make sure that the signal looks good, and then pop it back up again. But if the signal looks good and everything is working correctly, again, no worries. We'll be able to see any of the data that's saved after the session is done. So we're going to go ahead and assume again that the session has reached 30 minutes, and we'll go ahead and minimize our Netflix window. We will go ahead and stop the screen fading, and then the session will reach 30 minutes, and you will see something to the effect of this, where it'll say save with playback, discard and exit. So again, we're going to save with playback. And that's going to end the session. So once the session is done, we'll be able to come back to the review screen, which during the reviews, your provider or your trainer will go over the different charts and graphs and things that we're looking for. We recommend that you don't look in too deeply into any of the data. Obviously, this is very complex information, so we want to make sure that a provider or a trainer is going over the information with you, explaining the process, so that way there's no assumptions being made about what the lines mean, what's good and what's bad. We don't want to assume anything. So if you're going to go ahead and leave the session open and running, and you wanted to start a new session, you can just go ahead and go here to start new session. Or I recommend just go ahead and going back to where it says all plans. That way, in case you're switching folders, you can come back here and there'd be a separate folder down here. Always remember too that this little notification you can just close out at any point in time. But once we're back here, then at this point you're done. You can go ahead and leave the window open. You can minimize it or you can leave it open. It's up to you. But ultimately, we just want to go ahead and close the laptop lid, make sure that the computer stays on, so that way we can log in and check the session logs and look for any data that we're going to review for reviews, for sessions, upcoming reviews. So if there's Any questions, obviously reach out to your provider or your technician. This video is meant to be just a tool for you to go back and look at and see. So please study this video, but know that if you have any additional questions, your provider will be very happy to connect with you via Zoom or FaceTime or whatever is convenient to answer any of your questions. So for now, you guys just let us know if there's anything else that you need that this video wasn't able to cover, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you.